Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live discussion, Winter Fire Safety, Preparing Your Department and Your Community. I'm your host, Firefighter Michael McLeieer, current president of E.S.C.A.P.E Incorporated and past president of the Michigan State Firemen's Association. Today, I'm joined by subject matter experts from the U.S. Fire Administration and the National Fire Protection Association for a conversation on the threats fire poses during the winter months. Colder weather is fast approaching, and in many parts of the country, it already feels like winter outside. Besides snow and ice, winter also means new challenges posed to public safety by fire, but also opportunities for departments to engage with their communities. Today, we'll discuss some of those challenges and opportunities for departments to conduct community outreach, taking into consideration the threat COVID-19 continues to pose. But before we begin, I would like to first ask our panelists to introduce themselves. Teresa, I'd like to start with you.
Hi, I'm Teresa Neal, Fire Program Specialist at the United States Fire Administration. I work in Prevention and Information Branch in Messaging.
Very good. Thank you for being here today. And Andrea, I'd like to move on to you, please. And you'll want to unmute, Andrea. It's okay.
There we go. First one, our first one.
You bet.
So hi, Andrea Vastis, on my phone because my computer has decided it doesn't want to play along today. I'm the Senior Director of Public Education at NFPA, National Fire Protection Association. Really pleased to work with our public education and our wildfire teams for all things safety in and outside of your home for fire and life safety education. And this coming June will be 4 years for me at NFPA.
Excellent. Congratulations. And thank you again for taking the time to be here today. Today's discussion will last about an hour, depending on how many questions we receive. I have some questions in front of me already to start the discussion that I'll be asking our panelists, but we're also taking questions from you, our audience. If you do have any, please leave a comment and we'll try and answer it. With that, let's go ahead and begin. So the first question I have, what are some of the unique threats that fire poses to public safety during the holiday period and the winter months? Teresa, I'd like to start with you, if I may.
Thanks, Michael. The fires increase and deaths increase during the winter months. There's many reasons why. We're heating, we're cooking in the home more. That also has to do with COVID for people staying home. We are decorating, and sometimes we are on autopilot and not paying attention to everything that we're doing. So we know that those happen. We've already seen an increase each day. A team at E.S.C.A.P.E that searches the media for any fatalities that have occurred, and we're seeing more and more. And not only are we seeing more deaths, but we're also seeing that what we know is being proven out in the community. You know, people who are much older and younger children are dying in fires, and not that it's ever a good time to die in a fire, especially because most of them are preventable, but during the holiday seasons, it seems to hit people much harder. And so we just want to, Andrea and I have talked about it many times over the years, and how can we work together to raise awareness to help people understand that their risks are increased during the winter.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Andrea, what is your response here on some of the unique threats that fire poses to public safety during the holiday period and also the winter months?
Yeah, and we do see the increase, and some of it is just it's going to happen, right? If you think about the parallel of motor vehicle crashes, right? The more cars on the road, the more likely a crash is going to occur because now you just have set up an environment for it. So, these winter months mean more people gathering, probably more people drinking, more people doing cooking, more distracted cooking. And again, because we're turning on our heaters, we're turning on our fireplaces, we're loading our fireplaces. And so just the sheer act of what we have to do to get through the holidays and winter months increases that risk because we're just putting it out there. And then you overlay the just sort of social aspect of it. And I'll pepper in some of the pieces here, which is, we know that candle fires, for instance, peak in December and January, right? And because why? We're decorating more, we're using candles more as part of our ambiance and having people over. And then of course, things like decorations, which we are more likely to use in December. So, and then of course, the #1 day of the year for a fire department to have to be called to a home fire, Thanksgiving, and, just followed by Christmas and New Year's.
Absolutely. And Teresa had mentioned the two of you work very closely together, both organizations, and that's really what's so exciting is collaboration, and we can provide the latest and greatest information for our audience so that they have all of the tools and all of the tips at their arsenal to be able to facilitate information and correct information out to the community. So that's great. The second question that I have, and we'll start with Andrea on this one, how does the added stress people report they experience during the holiday season increase the risk of fire and related injuries?
Yeah, and this is really the interplay of behavior and environment, right? And then your emotional state. So you've got to think about, safety as being an interplay of all these factors. We know people report being more depressed during the holiday season. And depression means there's more sleeping, maybe more alcohol use or other drugs, right? And then those kinds of things make you more likely to forget you have something on the stove or leave a candle burning, and forget to take a candle out, put a candle out. So things like that. And then just the sheer stress. I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year, and, I have my family, everybody's vaccinated, but I'm still stressed, right? I'm still stressed about how I'm going to keep us spaced, the menu, all the different pieces, and, who's going to argue with who and all that. And so my brain is filled with so many things as they are for people, that then I'm more likely to not be paying attention, or I'm cutting corners when I'm getting my things done.
Very good point. You bet. And that can lead to, again, we don't stand by our pan. We walk away from the kitchen, what we're cooking or broiling, frying. So that all leads to that potential fire, and some very good points. Teresa, what are some thoughts that you have on this particular question? How does the added stress people report they experience during the holiday season increase their risk of fire and other related injuries?
Yeah, I think, I echo what Andrea said, but also just being distracted. There's so much going on that you're distracted by so many things. We all have those moments where we walk into a room and we don't remember why we went into that room in the first place, or we walk into another room and get so involved in something that we're doing there, we forget that there was we put something on the stove, or we have candles lit, or, there's just so much going on that I think that sometimes it's very easy for us to get distracted by our life, by our phones, by all those things. And that's the reason why we're more susceptible to making those mistakes, those honest, oops, mistakes that can actually cause a fire or an injury to someone.
Very good point. And I know in the northern regions, we've had a later fall this year. So it's been warm even in September, October, and even in early November. And now in many parts of the northern regions, it's transitioned now immediately to cold. We didn't have the long fall. The leaves are still in many cases on the trees, but in some of the states, we've actually seen snowfall already for the first time, and it continues. So that can lead to, again, that busyness. We're trying to do things outside. We're trying to get shopping done. We're trying to find available toys because there's, in some cases, a shortage and things like that. Those things can add those levels of stress. So very good point. Our first question came in from an audience member here. Have we ever, as an industry, done any digging into how receptive people are to fire and life safety education messaging, taking into account holiday-related stress, and if we need to modify content or delivery? I'm just going to just throw this out for both of you. Whoever would like to speak up, certainly feel free.
I think our messages have to be very, very targeted. People have too many things. We talk about this every time we do it, that people have so many to-dos. You from every industry, every walk of life that you're in, every place that you do a little bit of life in gives you 10 things that you need to remember to be safe, healthy, happy, all of these things. And so during the holiday season, I think that people's capacity to care and to lock on is not that great. And so if we are trying to be, over tell them, we're never going to make everybody 100% safe. So we need to pick those messages that will have the most bang for their buck. What is the most important thing? And those are the ones I think we have to reiterate over and over and over again. Instead of giving them 10 things, give them 1 or 2 and just continually reiterate those messages over and over again so that it gets into their subconscious. Too many messages, I think they'll tune out because they're getting those messages from everywhere right now.
Great advice, Teresa. Excellent. Andrea, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love this question because it's really the place we need to go and do some more real research on what is the thing that moves the needle for people, right? And so we know that our messages are accurate. We know the data, we know the risk, and then we need to fill in some of those blanks. And so, I look at a couple of things. One is we have to tie our messages to what's going on in their life in that moment. And so whatever you're doing is you're trying to make their life easier. You're trying to reduce their stress. And so if you're offering up something that says, hey, this Thanksgiving, assign tasks to people so that you don't have to do it all. And then you don't have to worry that everybody's paying attention to one thing, but nobody's paying attention to that. This Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas and you have a tree, designate the person who's going to water the tree every day so you don't have to stop, those kinds of things. And then it's important that people go back to what we know about behavior change, right? And some of the key things are rooted in some of that theory. The simplest one is the health behavior theory, right? We've got to work on helping people realize they are at risk, that it is, something severe, but it's really about you removing the barriers. So I tie this to Teresa. Don't overload them because that's a barrier. As soon as they think they have 10 things they have to do, you've lost them. So remove the barrier, make it as easy as you can, and tie it to what's happening in their life right now.
Great advice. And we've got a follow-up to the last question, and I think we all three can answer yes to this. Are those tied to a recent comprehensive community risk assessment locally? And that community risk assessment is really going to help us locally and even at the station level understand what our audience's needs are, what our target audience's needs are, and what information is going to be the right information at the right time to that right target audience. So that community risk assessment continues to be a key component of the community risk reduction outreach efforts. So,
but one other thing I would just like to say about that is that the other thing about the community risk assessment that's important is that it helps you to identify other partners within your community who are doing things that are touching the lives of your people in your community. Fire departments can't do all of it. If they don't have the money, they don't have the personnel, they don't have the bandwidth to do everything. And every time they think they've got it, under control, what happens? Another thing happens, and makes everything go out of control. People were getting into CRR, they were getting into community risk assessments. They were getting into homes and doing home safety surveys. And what happened? COVID. And then they were all had to do tons of other work, and this work couldn't be done. We have to, while COVID is a different, it's kind of an outlier when it comes to at that time, how we move on. We need to be able to have those coalitions within our community so that it is all the onus does not fall on just the fire department or on one group. It is for everybody, for everyone to find what they can do. Who's touching different members of your community. Your assessment tells you certain areas are having more fires. Well, what community groups are going into that area most often? How can we get them involved? So that assessment's also very important, not just so that you know your risk, but who's in your community, who's active and who's touching your community members so that you can partner with them and have like a force multiplier on all the activities that you're doing.
Well stated, Teresa. That's excellent. You bet. And that'll give our audience, again, that opportunity to collaborate, to partner, and maybe be able to reach those hard to reach populations that the fire department alone cannot get into. So community partnerships are so essential. Absolutely.
And it ties to the receptive piece, because firefighters, right, you are one of the most trusted professions out there, right? Nurses and fire departments. But when you partner with people, you can let them deliver the message. It's not just taking the load off. Is, you know, when there are people in the community, like places of worship, like the hairdressers, like the local businesses, and they're helping deliver the message, they're an added trusted piece of it. It's
Very
not
good
just
point.
resources, but they'll help with the message as well.
You bet. Excellent. Great, Andrea. Thanks for sharing that. Teresa, I'd like to come back to you. I've got a third question here in our list of questions. What are some of the ways that departments and community educators are engaging with their communities to spread winter and holiday fire safety messages?
Yeah, we always see a lot on social media that that's a way that they can get out there, get it broad-based. If it's not through your regular social channels, even through Nextdoor or those types of channels that can really speak to your community alone, not the world in general. But at this time, more fire departments are doing things, are available for Christmas tree lightings, and it's getting around to Thanksgiving where organizations are handing out meals to underserved populations. If the fire department can connect with them, even putting a flyer in with that meal, or a home safety survey that they can do, or just even your local fire department cares about you type of message that you can insert into all of those things, that goes a long way of building relationships and getting information into people's hands.
Absolutely. Good points. Andrea?
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is I think fire departments are definitely getting better at using social media, using things like TikTok, creating some unique ways of reaching people that, and they're more willing to use humor and fun, and you have to, right? Because the old, do this or you'll die, it doesn't work. And so we need to keep it fun again and relevant. And then it does go back to some of the partners in terms of placement, right? So if you think about where are you placing your fire safety information, at the food bank, at the local grocer, in the restaurants, through the drive-through delivery and the different kinds of delivery systems, again, places of worship, newsletters, all those kinds of things. I think today's fire and life safety educator recognizes that they're not just always waiting to be invited to come speak to someone, but they're proactively reaching out and using the opportunity to say, hey, this ties to what you're doing and you have a chance to make a difference with your audience.
Absolutely, Andrea. Good points. Teresa, I'd like to come back to you since we're on social media right now. And if we could talk about the post that you placed on the U.S. Fire Administration social media page back on Veterans Day about the importance of not using an oven to heat one's home. And that received so much feedback. I know I had a lot of people that had no idea that that was a hazard. And also it's a great opportunity to talk about the pictographs and how the messaging and the visuals really went hand in hand.
Yeah, so actually it started with Lisa, who put out a tweet on Twitter about not using your oven to heat your home. And she said she kept on getting messages back saying, really? I didn't know you shouldn't do that. I didn't know that was wrong. And people wanted to know why. And so we checked with Bruce Bausch, who works with us, and he explained, to me that your oven is made to heat up, cool down, heat up, cool down. It's not a constant thing. And when you keep your oven open, it's not able to heat up, cool down, heat up, cool down. It just has to stay heated because it's got this larger area, which can cause a malfunction, and that malfunction can cause it to short and cause a fire. Then there's always that risk that if you have the door open as well, tripping over it, hitting into it, young children being around it, animals being around. So you also have that burn type of issues that you could have going on. But yeah, using your oven is not, right now it's really difficult because heating prices are, it's expensive. Heating oil is expensive, electricity is expensive. We're in this time where everybody's worried about their budgets and being able to buy Christmas presents and all of these things, but we need to do it safely. Whatever we do, we need to do it safely. And it's really the amount of electricity that you're going to use, opening your oven and having it, even if it didn't cause a fire, the electricity is going to, that increased electricity is going to off-put any benefit that you would have seen. Than if you used a space heater, if you bought a space heater or something like that. So I know that it's difficult. And I know people are just trying to find ways to do it, or also just not to turn their heat on yet. Like, how can I get through the mornings and not have to turn my heat on until, we just keep closer and closer to December or January, but safety is very important. And while, yes, we want all the money to buy the presents and have the great festive time, the most important thing to anybody in your life is that you're there. And if you heat unsafely, there's always that risk. Even if you don't think there is one, there is that risk that a terrible fire could happen and you wouldn't be there. And that is the most important thing to anybody in your life.
And one of the things as community advocates, sometimes, and I had this question posed to me after this post, that an individual's furnace was not operational this year and they didn't have the money to contact a licensed and qualified technician. In many of our communities across the country, 211 is available, and that's a great resource to be able to connect needs and resources together. And many times they can find the appropriate advocacy groups to be able to help get that furnace back in operational order, or even for a furnace replacement. So again, sometimes people resort to the easiest thing, but that may not be the long-term solution, and certainly puts everyone in that occupancy in harm's way. Mm-hmm. You bet. Anything you want to add to that, Andrea?
I think you covered it really nicely. And I think, again, because we're dealing with the interplay of things that might be, I was thinking about here in New England, and it was 70 degrees here today, right? And so, but it's going down to 45 tonight. And so that whole concept of people don't want to turn their heat on yet. So they're like, I'll use these temporary things in the meantime because I only need it for today. It definitely is a sticking point. And it just shows to the fact that technology changes. We think we're safer with certain things, and we need to really be able to describe some of the whys behind the messages of when we say don't heat your house with your oven.
That's so
important. And I think that's really important, is that we're so used to being a society where we just tell, we're the experts and we know, and we're telling you. But we are in the Google age, and people can find out why about anything and everything. And so if you want to be effective, if you want to be able to get people's attention and maybe even get them to move towards that behavior change, we have to start giving them the why as well, because they're not going to just listen just because you know it. They want to know, why is it important? And it's good for us too. It's good for us to be able to talk to each other and say, really, why is it like that? How can we do it better?
Absolutely. 70% of our hearing and comprehension is diminished during emergent times. And if we teach proactively the why, that information is much easier to recall when we're building muscle memory, so that everyone knows exactly what to do at the right time and take the correct action for themselves and also their families. Very good points. Andrea, the next question I'd like to start with you. It has to do with, we're any different time right now. COVID-19, we now have vaccines available and so forth. However, COVID-19 still poses a threat this year versus last winter, just in a little bit different form or fashion. How will this affect efforts to engage with the public? And are there any solutions or alternatives that departments can implement to keep their members and their community safe?
Well, I'll tell you, I think that, I make the joke, hybrid is the new black, right? This is what's here to stay. right? And the innovation that we saw and the flexibility and the willingness to say, I've still got to reach my community, I've still got to do my job, and I've got to find a way to do it, that we saw in 2020 and the beginning of 2021. I think that's the effect that has lingered now. And I think it's the piece that we know we're going to stick with. When you are more digital, when you are using social media, when you are using platforms that are more digital, you increase your reach and you're able to just get to many more people throughout any time of the day. And that's a good thing, because that's building your environment of the story you're telling in your community. And you have opportunities to tell it in a variety of ways. We will need to keep that up and then find the safe ways to be in person. And people are looking forward to being back in person, because that's where your depth lies. When you can be with people and take more time with them, you can target a little differently, you can approach things a little more deeply, you can do a little more. And so it's actually the right combination that each department will find, but you really need to do both, and you need to stick with both. This isn't just about can't wait till I'm just back in place again in front of people. It's not going to be like that. Take what you've learned and actually make it work for you.
Very great, good advice. Excellent. Teresa, what are your thoughts on this particular
No,
question?
I think she covered it great. I don't really have anything else to
Okay.
add to that.
And we now have technology. What we're doing today, this wasn't happening prior to COVID. And so we're able to reach out to many more people, but this isn't the only means or the only platform. We need to make sure it's balanced and it's blended. You bet. On the subject of COVID safety, we've got one of our audience members who's just posed another question here. Are there any plans to develop best practices related to RVI, to doing home safety surveys as covered in NFPA 1452?
That is a great question. I don't have an answer to that at the moment. I know that there's a constant look at how we do this, and I know these are the kinds of conversations that are happening in the background. With specific to a particular standard, I can't answer that, but I can tell you that it is the conversation from the field and internally here is, what's changing? What are people asking for? We always want people to submit, whether it's through the educational messaging desk reference or through other portals to NFPA, is, we need this, and then that gets taken back and put in because it has to happen. And I know there have been a lot of good work around how we can do certain inspections potentially virtually. And so there's definitely work and movement. I just don't know the specifics.
Okay, great question. The next one, I'm going to start with Teresa, the fifth question here. There are a lot of fire prevention and safety messages to introduce to the public as we head into the winter months, such as the increased fire risk from heating devices, the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning, holiday fire safety, winter storms, and safety when it comes to using candles and generators. How do you package all of these messages in a way that resonates with the public without overwhelming them?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we have done with NFPA is that for the last, I believe it's 6 or 7 years, we have joined up to do put a freeze on winter fires. And so what we do is we focus on, putting out messages about holiday safety and decoration safety around in December, to doing heating and carbon monoxide safety in January, and then February we're kind of focusing on winter storms, which also brings in electrical and also still CO safety. And so we try to make it a little bit easier by both agencies working together to bring out these messages, letting you see that it's a joint effort, and that we are hitting all those same, so that our reach is, like we said, we have those force multipliers, that they're putting it out there so that everybody's getting the messages that are important, but they're not getting it overdone. And I think doing it under that umbrella, especially with these, the two of us, it really gives it that understanding that, okay, we're all really focusing on heating at this time, and whoever you talk to, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get reinforcement of the heating, or reinforcement about decorations. Right now we've been doing some things together to put up the cooking, so that we understand that cooking and turkey fryers and all of that. So that's one of the ways that USFA and NFPA have tried to work together to get messages out, but then to have everyone see the horizon kind of the same during these months.
Great advice and great points, Teresa. Andrea, what are your thoughts on this particular question?
So it's a couple of things. I would say some of it is the proactive. I know that we do a really good job of talking to our local media outlets after an event happens, an incident happens, and then, we go in with the prevention tips. And so there's this opportunity now, as each sort of week or each event is on its way, to reach out to your local media outlets and say, this is going to be the time. So here are some things you can offer your viewers, and where make yourself available to them for that. And I think that's a piece of it. And then I would say the other piece is, without overwhelming, obviously, is who are some of the highest risk people at this time, and those gaps, right? Carbon monoxide is something people don't talk enough about. We're just putting more and more into the lexicon of people, right? And it ties to things like heating safety and fireplace use and generator use and all that. So you can keep a thread of saying, I'm going to focus on carbon monoxide at this time, and I can still tie it to each of the things that is going on at a particular time.
Very good points. And I'll expand upon the media. Next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, newsrooms will be looking for dynamic content. Those are typically the times when the traditional fire prevention or fire marshal's office at the local fire station is closed. So having that relationship and being available even during those after hours is so essential, because those beat reporters, those assignment desk editors, are looking for those emerging stories. And once Thanksgiving is finished, they're going to automatically be transitioning into some of the messaging, such as carbon monoxide poisoning, certainly such as holiday lighting, selecting your Christmas tree, making sure it's watered, and having those talking points and relying on the trusted sources through the U.S. Fire Administration and the National Fire Protection Association. Our audience members are going to hit a home run with the content, because they don't have to worry about if their message is correct or not. Both organizations have already done that in a very proactive way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Andrea, I'd like to start with the next question here. It's learn the sounds of fire safety. It focused on educating the public on the sounds different alarms make. And that was the theme for this year's Fire Prevention Week in October. How does that relate to holiday and winter fire safety?
Thank you. You're probably going to start having more guests in your home. And that means in your home, those guests should know things like the ways out of the rooms and your home and your family's meeting place, right? We don't think that all of a sudden, that when somebody's over, that we say, oh, by the way, the smoke alarms are all working, the CO alarm is working. Here are different ways out. If you hear it go off in the middle of the night, here are your ways out of the house. This is our meeting place. I think that's a really important piece, is to make sure that your guests know what's going on. You maybe having people over more. This one's my tribute to Marty on our team, is give the gift of safety. Hey, nothing wrong with giving the gift of safety to someone. And obviously, depending on who it is and who here's a CO alarm. Notice you didn't have one. Let me buy that for you for the holidays. Let it be my gift of safety to you. Those are the kinds of things that you can do. And then, of course, being really mindful, because again, what's the gap? People who are deaf or hard of hearing, people who have cochlear implants or hearing aids, who take them out at night when they go to sleep. Are you prepared for those instances in your home, for your guests, for your family?
Absolutely, Andrea. Teresa, what are your thoughts on this particular question?
Yeah, just what Andrea said about, when you have guests and if they do, when they're in their own home, they are told to plan around their abilities, but when they come to your home, that you might not be understanding of what those abilities are. And it's when someone's staying to understand, and like you said, let them know this is how we get out. This is if they are deaf or hard of hearing and they can't hear the alarm, who's going to make sure that they get out? Are we going to assign someone to make sure that they're awoken, to be able to get out? So it's being cognizant of those things as well, because people aren't just going to know. They're not going to know how it works in your home, or who will help them if they need help.
Absolutely. And as a follow-up question, I just thought of next week and over the next month, a lot of fire departments are going to either be sponsoring or co-sponsoring food drives. How can we tie fire safety and, Andrea, as you said, the gift of safety with the alarms and things like that? How important is it to connect the food drives and the food giving with fire safety? How about if I come back to you, Andrea?
Again, I think that's a really great question. And it's an opportunity to, you can always do the put things in. But when you're talking to people who are, you have this opportunity to say, what type of stove do you have? What type of oven do you have? How do you plan on cooking this? Hey, make sure keep your kids and pets 3 feet away. And it's an opportunity, I think, for fire departments. If you have smoke alarm installation programs, sign people up there. If they're coming in because they need food, there's probably some other things they need too. And so this could be an opportunity to sign them up for a home, smoke alarm assessment, maybe a fall assessment if they're older adults, or smoke alarm installation. So I tie it up. They're there.
Absolutely. Teresa?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the best time, you have that captive audience to say, do you have smoke alarms? Can we come to your house? We would like to install them in your home. You tell us when a good time is. We won't bring 12 people to tromp through your home, but 2 of us can come. We can install your smoke alarm. We can talk to you about how to be safer in your home, and give them, because many of them probably don't know that you're willing to do that, even if you can't give smoke alarms, like Andrea said, even if you say, would you like a home safety survey? You want us to walk through with you just to see? And maybe your department isn't giving away, but if you see enough of an issue, you might be able to use your contacts with your local Home Depot, your Lowe's, your small mom and pop hardware store in your area, and get some alarms to help, a few families that don't have anything at all, but you're not going to know unless you have those conversations. And so when you are doing those food drives, when you are handing things out, let them know that you would like to help make them safer. And especially if you can do it. I mean, I always talk about throwing things in, a flyer here and a flyer there, but it's better if you can do it face to face. If you can ask somebody, then it makes them understand that you care about them. And it's not just you got a flyer like every other person got a flyer, that they are concerned about you. And so I think it's a great opportunity for departments to make that one-on-one contact with people, and people who, as Andrea said, who obviously there is one need, there could be several other needs. And by you making that first contact, you may be able to help them in so many different ways that you didn't even realize when you were just going to install smoke alarms in their home.
Great points, Teresa. Excellent. Bet. All right, the next one I'm going to direct towards you. You both have done a great job talking about the partnership on Put a Freeze on Winter Fires, and that campaign again runs December through February. Teresa, is there a cost for this? It sounds like a really great campaign.
No cost. We will be posting assets. We have some co-branded assets. We actually have some new ones coming out this December that will be co-branded so that you can, they're kind of like greeting cards, so you can send them to your friends on social media. And so that'll be really neat to share, but no cost. When you come, each month you'll be able to to see what we are posting. What, you can share those posts. You can go to either one of our pages and pull down social cards to use those as well. Use the hashtag winter fire safety. And when you see that hashtag, then you'll know, you can look and see what other people are posting as well.
Great. All right. I'm going to make a note of that hashtag. That's good to remember. And then we can track all of those great posts. And Andrea, when we talk about this campaign, what if a department wants to include their own logo on the literature? How do they go about doing that?
So I know that all of our tip sheets actually have a spot for the logo. So you can add the logo to any of our tip sheets. And then there are a bunch of other assets that when you go to our website, if it says your logo here, then you can add your logo here. Certainly, I know for the E.S.C.A.P.E social cards, and Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, people can absolutely add to yours. Everything's in the public domain there. Yep. So you have the opportunity to put things right on there.
Mm-hmm.
So a great way to personalize it, a great way for local departments to take the national expertise and be able to brand it locally right within their own community. Those are fabulous resources, and the great thing is they're free. So we want to make sure that everybody knows that. All right. The next one here I have is, Andrea, I'm going to direct this one to you first, if I may. As the year winds down, and we're winding down 2021, what should public educators and departments be doing now to plan for 2022? And what will we see more or less of, in your opinion?
So this is great. So the year's going to wind down, and I want to just say thank you, because I think so much amazing work was done for Fire Prevention Week and during the month of October. It's easy to just sort of drop off. You did this flurry of social media, this flurry of stuff, and then it just get tired. So don't take your foot off the pedal too much, because you built up an audience in October, and you might have brought new people into your fold, and you want to keep them engaged across the holidays. That's why it's important to take this time to really reach people. And so that's a pretty critical piece of this is don't let the pressure off, keep yourselves out there and engaged. If you're thinking about 2022, and so here are some things to think about. So Sparky the fire dog and our sparky.org page website has had a really nice redesign. Take some time now to play around with the assets between NFPA and E.S.C.A.P.E. Again, you want to find credible assets. Take some time now to start sifting through and look for things you haven't used before. Sparky.org has, you can join Sparky's Fire Safety Club. And so kids actually can join, create an avatar, and they get badging for doing different activities. And so right now what we've done is we've made sure to position the homepage for our cooking and holiday safety activities and games. So one thing is, it's important to keep checking back on sparky.org, because we're constantly looking to rearrange and promote certain things so that the information stays dynamic and topical and relevant. 2022 is also the 100th anniversary of Fire Prevention Week. So this is exciting, and we're looking at, what does that mean? And so, from a media and partnership perspective, 100 years of Fire Prevention Week is really important. For your community, what does it mean? What is still going on? I don't know, I can't, offer you the theme yet or any of that information. But what I can say is think about the changes. And again, I'm on my phone here, which is why I'm a little shaky, because my computer died, but I can do this on my phone. Technology has changed. Fire has changed. It's a lot faster now. There are still things that are just different. And I think in 2022, what we're going to do is do some of that good look at what's new, what's different, what's changed, and what do people really need to know and be able to do now to lead safe and healthy lives.
Great information, great insight, Andrea. Teresa.
Yeah, so I think that as we roll into the new year, one thing I want to just remind everybody of, especially with fire and life safety organizations, is that CRR week is in January. And so it's going to be January 17th through the 25th. There's a website, crrweek.org, that you can go to for more information. But what I would like to see in 2022 is I think I would like to see a renewed understanding of what community risk reduction is for the fire service, what it really encapsulates. You know, people are thinking that it's something new, but it's really what you're already doing in a more intentional way. And I mean, make that New Year's resolution that if you haven't done a community risk assessment for your community, that that next year, 2022, will be your year for doing that, so that you know where you're at, where your problems lie, and how to address them. Not only that, is that the fire prevention and safety grants allows you to do a grant to do a community risk assessment, and they're going to be, the grants will probably be at the end of December, beginning of January, that you will be applying for those. So it's a great time, you know, start of the year and everything, to say, we haven't done this before, we are going to do it. But not getting a grant does not mean you can't do it. I mean, U.S.F.A. has 2 courses about community risk reduction that are free online courses that you can do self-study. They don't take long. I personally think they're wonderful courses. And, you know, it's really about getting that with that community risk assessment is learning why you're doing what you're doing and how to do it better, by looking at your data, which is the most important thing, and knowing what your area is, and then being able, like we said earlier, to reach out to your community organizations, to those people who would be able to help you, you know, push the goalpost, you know, a little bit farther, and get it done, and be force multipliers for all of your efforts. I think one of the things that I would love to see is that is the fire departments across the nation, that is their New Year's resolution. We're going to do a community risk assessment in our community, whether it's through a grant or it's going to be by ourselves, which it can be done, or in partnership. If you're a big locale, you could partner with a local university or a state university and help get them to help you work on it. But so that we're all doing, all the work that we're doing is very intentional for our area. We're not just giving out smoke alarms because everybody gives out smoke alarms. Well, maybe that's not what your problem is in your community. Maybe everybody's flush, you know, that with smoke alarms. So then what's the next thing that we need to do? And we'll really know that by looking at our individual data and using it to make decisions in the future.
Great recommendations and great information, absolutely. And departments that I've spoken with have had a better success navigating through these uncertain times of COVID-19 because they understand that community risk reduction process, and the community risk assessment is really a base foundation in anything we do going forward, identifying those uncover those unexpected risks and those target audiences and things like that. So very good point. Another resource I wanted to share that I just pulled up here on Facebook, again, for our audience. If you're not aware, on Facebook, there is a group called Fire Life Safety Educators and Coordinators. And there are fire and life safety educators and teachers and practitioners that are sharing best practices daily on that site. So that's definitely one, if you have access to Facebook, it's definitely one you want to become a member of. It's a private group, but once you answer those questions, they'll go ahead and accept you into that group. They host, occasionally they host webinars and things like that on quarterly, what are some of the emerging trends and so forth out there. So utilize that, take advantage of that. We do have another audience member who's actually posed a question here. And the question is, are there sites that have public service announcements on fire safety we can get for free to distribute to our area residents, or maybe some that we can print to use or distribute? Andrea, how about if I start with you on this one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our videos you can use and you know, as long as they're not altered, you can use our videos. So between sparky.org, we have the NFPA Kids YouTube channel and the NFPA YouTube channel. There are some videos, and some are in the PSA format, like that 30-second hit. Others are in a little bit more of a minute to 2 minutes of, learning something and having a bit of a deeper dive, for that 1 or 2 minutes, because again, we're talking about people's attention span. So you have access to those things off of our websites. The ability to do more PSAs is one that I think is one that we need to do, right? Is have a bigger cachet of things. I know that we and U.S.F.A. worked with Vision 2020 on a number of videos that are on their website, on Strategic Fire website, that people can actually download and embed into various social media forms. And so that's good on a variety of topics. And so there are things out there before you go make anything, again, just Google it and check out our websites. And I think, Teresa, you may have definitely some things that will work for people as well.
We have videos. We also have a YouTube channel, US Fire. Our YouTube channel has videos that you can take and use. We also, on our website, if you go to the website and go to the digital library, there's B-roll there available that you can take and use and, do voiceovers or anything with that B-roll as well.
Excellent. And Andrea, you'd mentioned Vision 2020, another great resource. That's strategicfire.org, friends. If anyone would like to see the assets that they have, if you'd like to see a sample community risk assessment, modeling programs, and so forth, that's a great opportunity to be able to go to strategicfire.org, again, to be able to obtain some information. Teresa, we have a few more minutes here, just a few more minutes. Could you just briefly talk about Fire is Everyone's Fight? Because that's another great resource that some of our audience may not be aware of.
Sure, Fire is Everyone's Fight is really an umbrella for all of us to kind of use to get people to understand that we all have things that we can do to make ourselves safer, our families safer, and that we're empowered to do those things, that we can do it. So it's really an umbrella that you can, we ask that you join on our website, you'll get all the logos that you can use, but then after that, you make it your own. We're trying to have that tagline, those words, people understand, so that we can kind of change those norms of fire just happens and we don't know why, and the fire department comes and helps us. We're changing that norm to understand that we have things that we can do to make ourselves safer from fire. We're empowered to do them, and we will do them as we move forward. And each department, just like with CRR, each department, you're going to know how to use it based on the issues in your community.
Excellent. Excellent. Andrea, anything you'd like to add? Because that is a partnership, again, with the NFPA as well.
Yep, it is. And again, that's the point of these kinds of things that we're doing, right? I love this. And I Michael, Teresa, and I, we love being our little road show here because, when you have across the board, the people saying the same thing, maybe saying it a little differently depending on the audience, but we are providing consistency and coherency across the board. That makes it so much easier for the average consumer. My background is public health, and I used to do a lot of work in chronic disease prevention work. And what you heard from people was, oh, today eggs are bad, tomorrow eggs are good, it's this, it's that, it's always changing, and that erodes the trust. And then that makes people not even want to hear what you have to say and not engage. And so when you have something like a Fire is Everyone's Fight, when you have a Put a Freeze, when you have these pieces that are out there that, everybody can get behind and promote, and it's valid and accurate and relevant, you keep that trust and you build that trust and you maintain it throughout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if anyone would like to sign up for Fire is Everyone's Fight, go to usfa.fema.gov/Fire is Everyone's Fight. And that way you'll go to the landing page. There'll be some great resources there. There's no cost. Once you sign up, then you'll have access to all those assets, logos, and so forth. And one more quick question, Andrea, as long as we're trying to wind things down here, let's just again remind everyone of the educational desk reference, another great resource that is out there that many forget or don't know is available.
Yeah, and this desk reference was just updated in 2020. So now you have really great enhanced content with chapters on pet fire safety and youth fire setting, and a lot of enhanced electrical and carbon monoxide content. So this desk reference is organized so that is the most up-to-date, accurate messaging. It's hit up against behavioral science, pedagogy, codes and standards. It's meant to have the messages build upon each other. And it is nfpa.org/EMAC, EMAC, for the Educational Messaging Advisory Council. And the key here is you'll read it and it's pretty dry, and it's meant to be the most important thing. So this is where we get things like stand by your pan, right? So we have messaging around unattended cooking, since it's involved in a third of the cooking fires. Well, and then you think about who your audience is and how you want to make it in the vernacular of your audience. So absolutely, nfpa.org/EMAC. It's, download your copy. It's free. It's available. And it is, when you are saying, what are we saying about XYZ? It'll likely be in there.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Teresa, do you have any parting comments that you'd like to share with our audience?
I just thanks for the time. Thanks for listening, for giving us this opportunity to kind of talk about some of the things that we have going on. Be safe, be especially safe during Thanksgiving, so that you can enjoy it with your family, and firefighters can enjoy it with their families as well. And so just take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Andrea?
Again, thanks for your time and for the platform. We love this opportunity. The work that is done every day by the fire and life safety educator, by the fire service, injury prevention, it's incredible. It's dynamic. It's ever changing. It's so challenging. So anything that we can do to lighten the load for you, please, check out our sparky.org and our websites, and, reach out to us through the website or education@nfpa.org if you have questions or comments. Our jobs, Teresa and I agree, is our job is to give you everything you need. So, follow, share, do all that stuff, and, just keep it up, because we really do appreciate it. It's not easy out there. And so thank you for all that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrea. Well, it looks like that's all the time we have for now. I just want to thank our panelists, Teresa, Neal, and Andrea Vastis, as well as everyone who joined us live here today. I feel we had a very interesting and informational discussion about winter safety and how to engage and educate your community during COVID-19. I also want to thank the National Volunteer Fire Council for organizing today's discussion. The NVFC is the leading nonprofit membership association representing the interests of the volunteer fire, EMS, and rescue services. They provide resources, training, advocacy, and programs to help the volunteer emergency services thrive. You can learn more about the NVFC and what they do, as well as access their resources at www.nvfc.org. If you're not a member, I want to encourage you to join. It only costs $18 a year and comes with a variety of benefits, such as free training in the NVFC's virtual classroom, access to the NVFC's volunteer voices, member community, and much more. You can learn more at www.nvfc.org/join. We'll include the video's description to the links that we've talked about to the NVFC, the USFA, and the NFPA's websites. And if we didn't answer your question, please email NVFC's communication coordinator, Matthew Odom, at matthew@nvfc.org. Thank you all for continuing to connect with your community. Have a great holiday season, and we appreciate and value everything that you do to keep your citizens safe. Enjoy your day.